You know, it's weird. I've been waiting since the moment I'd met her for Iron to come out of her shell and be less... irony? I wanted her to be upbeat and carefree, and when she finally does it, it's weird. She even said please when she asked me to make her something. And she asked me to, not demanded. She still required me to thank her for making food, though, so... baby steps. We were outside the Kobold Cave. We knew this was the place because all the totem was made of wood and decorated in blood. It's a very clear warning. We heard from Wokek that there was a side entrance to find Harold. We all agreed it was a much better idea than rushing in through the front door. Somehow, I don't think they'd believe us if we said we were a food delivery crew. We rounded around the other side, being very careful not to make too much noise.
Did we really need to bring Iggy with us?
Oh, so now you want to leave him behind?
Look, just for this part, this is dangerous. I mean, what if they catch him? I wouldn't trust them with Iggy for a second.
Every part of this journey is dangerous. I tried to tell you that, but you were so gung-ho about keeping him with us.
In for a penny, in for a pound, I suppose.
Besides, think of how useful he's already been. Not to mention how cute. Aww.
You always did like little critters.
And all the dudes made fun of me for it, yeah. Then I twisted their arm till they cried. Their parents said it wasn't very ladylike of me.
And good on you for it. Being ladylike is so last century.
What about you, Iron? You a big fan of animals?
Yes, of course I am. I used to visit those forests in my spare time, so I used to get a lot of interaction with them. Animals aren't generally afraid of dragons, so they used to spend a lot of time with us. It's almost like they can feel our peaceful nature, and they know that we're not going to attack them.
They run from humans, go figure.
They don't fear of what we're capable of because they know we won't do it. With humans, you've proven yourselves to be rather unpredictable, at best.
Hey, heads up. Entrance right there.
She was right. A side entrance for all to see. It was small and secluded and completely unguarded. This was the best chance we had to slip in undetected. We walked forward toward the opening cautiously. The grass covered the ground, so walking silently was difficult, but we somehow managed. Edith ran ahead and scouted it out. I don't know why she didn't let me do it. I was the scout after all. Iggy was shorter than the grass line, but its vibrant scales made it easy to keep track of him. Edith waved us over. The coast was clear. Phineas walked ahead of me and Iron was behind me. We walked closer and closer with each step.
What's the plan?
Well, Iron, go ahead and fire up.
Excuse me?
You know, like with Tara, you know. I am the consequences of your action. You remember.
I was under intense mental duress. I had never done anything like that in all of my lives. I couldn't even begin to know how to do it again, especially with something like this.
Well, what about just going in, throwing things around? Throw like a few regular fireballs?
It's not the worst idea. If I could. That was only a few days ago, and I still haven't fully recuperated. I'm still weak from overexerting my strength. I'm not really sure I would be of much use on my own.
I thought dragons were all powerful.
Yes, but we are also pacifists when possible. We never get into fights, so I apologize if my lack of experience is an inconvenience to you.
Well, any other ideas?
Well, considering that, I think staying out of sight is best. I mean, I'm pretty sure we could take these kobold things, but I have a feeling they're one of those strength in numbers type of creatures.
In any case, as long as we're careful, we shouldn't have any issues sneaking in, grabbing the goat, and getting out.
Yeah, you're right. How hard could it be?
Besides, I doubt anything bad is going to happen outside of the...
What?
Iron collapsed backwards and grabbed her leg. We all ran over to her as fast as possible. We cleared out the weeds she was nearby and revealed to be a horrific bear trap clamped around her ankle.
Damn it. Come on, princess. We've got to go. That scream was heard for a mile around.
Iron tried to grip it with her hands, struggling not to cry from the pain. There was a lot of blood from her leg gushing out onto the ground. She couldn't wrap her hands around the teeth of the trap as they were far too sharp to grab and only served to slice her fingers.
It's no use. The teeth are too sharp.
We gotta hurry. Can we just take the bear trap with us?
I could try to use magic to unearth it, but it'll take a minute or so to gather the mana.
Move, I got this!
I was able to wiggle my hook into the trap and began pulling with it. It was lightly budging, but the other side wasn't going.
Xander, move just a bit. I'll help.
I adjusted my footing and Edith drew her spear, fitting it between Iron's leg and the other side of the trap. We pried at the same time and her ankle came loose. Phineas helped her leg out of it and we released it. It snapped shut. Edith began tearing her cape off and wrapped it around Iron's injured ankle.
You guys have gotta stop getting injured. I'm running out of cloak.
Pick her up. We've got to...
Phineas didn't get to finish his sentence because the sound of growling and snarling quickly closed in around us. We all looked around as I helped Iron stand up. She couldn't put any weight on her foot, so she had to stand with one leg. The kobolds, these brown, furry, ugly creatures, quickly surrounded us. I pulled Alistair off my back with my sole hand despite Iron's wishes. Hey, we didn't have much of a choice the way I saw it.
Xander, stand down.
I was afraid you were gonna say that.
We're surrounded, and Iron can't walk. One of us would have to carry her. We have to surrender.
What if they kill us?
They won't. Kobolds are known for taking prisoners as trophies, rather than killing them.
So we just surrender ourselves unto a bunch of these inbred creatures?
Calm down. We'll devise a plan once we're inside.
Off to a rousing start. Iron, I promise I'll heal you the moment that I can.
Thank you. I can't believe I got us caught. I'm sorry, everyone.
The kobolds shackled us and pushed us toward the caves with spears poking out into our shirts. We decided not to test the sensitivity of their blades. They forced us into the cave, and it was, for some reason, almost built like the interior of a building. It was dim. We could still barely see. Edith and Phineas were ahead of me and Iron behind. I kept looking back to make sure she was walking okay. I could tell she was struggling beyond belief. This was cruelty to force her to walk. These things were making my blood boil. Iron fell down and grunted behind me. I gasped and turned around, walking over to her.
No! Hey, are you okay?
Alexander, stay back!
The kobolds pointed their weapons at me. I looked at them outraged, pointing my bound hands at Iron.
She can't fucking walk! She needs help! This is how you treat your trophies, you fucking animals?
It's fine. I'm strong. I can stand.
Iron. She stood promptly, her head held high. I could see the immense amount of pain in her face. I looked around to see the kobolds still on guard. I scoffed and faced forward again. Eventually, we came to two cells on opposite sides of the hallway. Edith and Phineas were placed on the left, and Iron one on the right. They confiscated my sword and placed it outside the cell. Before he could say how convenient, it wasn't even remotely within any of our reach. I simply couldn't get to it without leaving the cell, and I figured that wasn't on the agenda. They locked us in our cells and snickered at us and left. I'd never wanted to punt a creature so hard in my life. I slumped in my spot and exhaled.
Does anything, I mean like anything, go according to plan for us? I mean, goddamn!
Damn it. I wish I was placed in the cell with Iron so I could heal her leg. She could easily pry these doors and rain fire to get us out of here.
Not happening, I'm afraid. I think my ankle is broken.
You shouldn't have walked on it!
And what would you have me do? They had spears pointing at me.
All right. Hey, look. We ain't getting out of here if you keep arguing with each other. We need a plan.
You're the one who always has plans.
And I'm thinking of one, so give me a damn second.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. Nothing ever goes as planned for us. So maybe my plans just aren't that good. So instead of coming up with one of my famous plans, we need to figure out a way out of this cell.
Is that not virtually the same thing?
I mean, let's think of the only way out of the cell we could realistically take before we figure out a way to actually do it. We can't break the doors down. Iron's in too much pain to pull the door off, and if Phineas uses earth and smashes it to pieces, that'd create way more noise than Iron just quickly pulling the door off and placing it down.
The walls behind us are made of stone. Phineas could open a path, but that might be too much noise. Earth magic is loud.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't choose a quieter magic path.
We have to open the doors.
That's the only way. Opening the doors quietly is the only way to do this. If they hear us, especially now, it's the worst case scenario. We need to do this subtly. Any ideas? I can't be the only one with the plan.
The only two ways to open these doors are to unlock them with a key, which we don't have, and picking the lock.
That's our way out. We pick the lock. Any other way is too risky.
We'll need a pick at the very least. Does anyone carry a hairpin?
You two had the longest hair of any of us. I keep telling you to cut it.
This is hardly the time for hairdressing advice. I don't have a pin. I keep it tied.
I literally just spawned this way.
There's gotta be something. Phineas, you can make a pin out of rock, can't you?
There's no guarantee the stone here will withstand you trying to pick a lock. You need something made of metal.
Suddenly, my stomach growled. It had been a minute since I'd eaten, but this was hardly the time. I grabbed it, my hand around my tunic and leather belt. Wait. My belt. I looked down and pulled the prong out of the loop and removed my belt. Iron looked over at me, and Edith and Phineas studied me closely. I grabbed the prong that goes through the belt loop and looked at Iron.
I know you may be too weak to pull a door off its hinges, but what about this?
Come here. Let me try.
Iron gripped the prong tightly and pulled it in an odd direction. A few seconds later, it snapped off the belt. Now, my pants would likely fall down, but one battle at a time. I showed the prong to Edith and Phineas, and they both celebrated quietly.
Toss it here.
I tossed it underhand, but it hit the edge of the table and fell to the floor outside the cell. I groaned and looked down.
Hey, relax. I got this. I just have to be careful.
Phineas carefully raised his hands, and a patch of earth slowly came out of the ground over the prong. It seemed to drag along the ground over the cell slowly. Edith knelt down and grabbed the prong, and we all grinned. Success! Edith looked left and right and pulled the prong into the keyhole, jiggling it for a bit. She was at it for what seemed like 2 minutes straight. We were beginning to worry it was a waste of time until...
You did it, Sergeant!
There we go.
Edith slowly swung her door open and walked outside her cell. She grabbed her spear and looked at Phineas and nodded. She looked at me, knelt down, ripped her cloak even further, a long strand off the left side, and handed it to me. She motioned to her waist. I nodded and wrapped it around myself like a makeshift navy blue sash.
All right, let's get out of here.
Sorry, Xander. Not yet.
What?
You and Iron might be safer in the cell for now.
What are you talking about? Are you leaving us here?
Hey, relax. Calm down. I'm not leaving you here for more than a few minutes. Finn and I are uninjured. We can look for the goat and get out of here once we loop back around for you.
Well, yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah, we can leave Iron here to rest.
I think you should stay too.
What do you mean?
You can't swing that sword. You have no weapons. You'd be a liability. I'm sorry, Xander.
Are you saying I'm useless too?
You're not useless, just not very useful in this case.
This was beginning to be the worst thing I could have ever imagined. I'd worked so hard this whole time, only to get told I'm holding people back. That I'm too weak. What the hell was even the point of me being here? I looked down and nodded. I was helpless. A little lamb waiting to be saved before slaughter time. I was utterly humiliated.
It won't be long, promise.
Relax, Xander. It's just the sword that you're using. It's for 2 hands, not 1. When we get out of here, we're going to look for a short sword for you. You aren't useless, boy. Just give it time.
You guys better hurry. They could come at any minute.
Right. Sit tight. We'll be back.
They jogged off to the right, the same direction the kobolds went. I watched them leave inside.
You're not useless.
I turned around to look at Iron, who was rubbing her ankle with a pained expression.
What?
You heard me just fine. You might have it in your head that you are. Just because you can't fight does not make you useless.
Then what could I do?
Right now?
Yeah, right now.
You want to know what you can do right now?
Yeah, I want to know, because I can't do shit.
You can sit down. Right here. And keep talking to me. Just like you always do.
You want me to talk to you?
Yes. It'll distract me from the pain. Please.
Okay. Thank you.
Enough with the thank yous. At least for now. Just talk to me. As an equal.
Okay. You're welcome then.
All right. Don't push it, smartass.
Finally! Good lord. Edith had a turn, Iron had a few turns, Xander's had far too many turns if you ask me. Although it is his story. Whatever, it's finally my turn. And boy, do I have things to tell you. What should I start with? Perhaps my war against the ice giants? Ooh, I suppose a good place to start would be when I helped the lizard race of Rorkenthal overcome an angry god. Ooh, but I could skip ahead to a far more interesting story. The time I fought the King of Farwind to the death. Which shall I...
None of those things ever happened. Ever. And besides, we're supposed to be conveying what happens in order, not some random tangent that means nothing to the story.
How dare you interrupt me? I would never do this to you.
Are you kidding? You literally did do this to me. Look, you interrupted me when you thought I was being too boring. Well, now you're too off topic. I'm gonna tell Xander you're telling the story wrong.
Oh, come on, don't do that. I've been waiting forever. It's finally my turn to tell the story.
Then tell it right.
Very well, fine. Edith and I were in the caves of the kobold shortly after liberating ourselves from our jail cell. We had one mission in mind, and that was to rescue Harold, a strangely named goat of Wokect. We used subterfuge to our advantage. Kobolds didn't need to see very much, so it was very dimly lit, but enough for us to barely make out where we were going. We knew that as long as we kept quiet, we'd be fine.
Hey, them, over there. You think they're heading to Harold?
How could you possibly be sure? They could be going anywhere.
I think I see them carrying a basket. And I'm almost positive I saw grass fall out. Might be going to feed him.
Well, I suppose it's worth a try.
Stay distant. We want to be able to follow them the whole way.
Before we could move, I felt something slap my calf. I yelped lightly. Edith whipped around, putting her hand over my mouth. She peeked around the corner to see kobolds look back curiously. We looked down to see a puppy-sized dragon looking up at us.
Hey, I was wondering where you went.
Yeah. Wash your hands, Sergeant.
Shh. Looks like they didn't search for us. Come on, let's follow. Iggy, please be very quiet. We're trying to find the goat so we can get back to Xander and Iron. You don't want them to be in trouble, do you?
Ignorak shook his head seriously.
Good. Keep close behind us.
The kobolds moved slowly through the tunnels, and we kept a reasonable distance. They stopped occasionally to turn around, but we stayed behind cover to keep from being caught. They finally went to a room at the end of a long, curved hallway and closed the door behind them. We jogged over to the door and stopped. Edith put her hand up, signaling to wait. She gestured towards the door, and we put our ears up to it. We waited for a while, heard some muffled rustling, chirping from the kobolds. Then, we heard a bleat. We exchanged glances and kicked the door open. The kobolds turned around, surprised, and stammered and shouted. Edith lunged forward with a spear and ran one of them through. I dropped a pillar of earth from the ceiling and crushed the other. Ignorak walked over to the goat and studied it, sniffing it. The goat bleated again.
Well, that went well. Let's loop back around and grab those two and skedaddle.
Skedaddling commenced. Let's hop to it. We exited the room with Ignorak and Harold, and then heard an echo down the hall. We stopped and listened to the sound. It was faint, but we could hear a myriad of footsteps. Someone was coming closer. Or worse, lots of ones. We knew it was time to go, but we were at a dead end. The only way out was towards the north.
You know, Xander really had a point. None of this shit ever goes as planned.
Then perhaps that should be our expectation going forward. I hope you're in the mood for a fight, Sergeant, because I'm still recovering from the mages.
My spirit's thirsty for some redemption anyway. Let's do this.
We prepare to fight the 3 or 4 of them that were coming, only to reveal about 30 of them. That certainly changed our mood in a hurry. Hey, if we run away, does that make us cowards?
I'd like to survive long enough to find out. Let's make some room and book it.
What about Xander and Iron?
They won't kill them. We'll have to come back for them later. That's the only way all 4 of us make it out of here.
Can't say I'm too keen on leaving them here.
You're a big softie now?
I'm sorry, do you want to make dinner tonight?
Argue about it later. Let's go.
We went in, arms at the ready, and surprised them with a frontal assault. We pushed them to the side, and the 4 of us ran for the exit. They called out in an outrage and gave chase. We quickly found our way back to Xander and Iron and ran past them. Xander stood up, caught off guard.
Hey, where are you going?
Be back as soon as we can.
What?
He looked to his right to see a massive amount of kobolds following us, and I think he understood, albeit a bit stunned. We turned the corner back to a massive open room. There was a ray of light leaking into the room from the far wall. Must have been the entrance, I thought.
This must be the entrance.
Yeah, I just said that. Suddenly the entrance closed, a boulder being pushed in front of it. I initially thought to use magic to move the boulder, but when I realized we were surrounded by kobolds, I reconsidered my approach. Sweat formed on my brow, and Edith immediately pushed her back against mine. The goat and Ignorak stayed near us.
We walked right into this. How could we have been so stupid?
Apparently, we didn't give the kobolds enough credit. They're craftier than they seem.
Well, they won't capture us again. We killed some of their own. We're too dangerous to keep alive.
A fight to the death, then?
Yeah. We ain't making it out of this.
I see.
So if you're gonna turn and run, now's as good time as any.
Ha! Do you know who you're talking to? I'm Phineas, the Evil!
Yeah, which is why I doubt you.
And if you think you're going out in some blaze of glory to sacrifice yourself for me, what could be more evil than to take that chance away from you by dying alongside you? Or, better yet, neither of us dying at all.
You know something? You're the best damn evil wizard that's ever lived.
You're not so bad yourself. Let's do this, Sergeant. Just so that everyone here knows the score. We are essentially dying for a goat. A goat. Heroic, isn't it?
Will you sit down already? Your mindless pacing is doing neither of us any good.
What the fuck am I supposed to do? My friends are out there fighting for their lives and I'm stuck in a jail cell.
Yelling about it is also going to do no good. And honestly, more likely it's going to draw their attention toward us. And then they're going to realize that Phineas and Edith are not in their cell.
I don't see you doing anything.
That's because I'm trying to focus on recovering. I'm trying to keep my body calm so that my wounds heal faster.
Is that a thing with dragons?
No, but panicking never improves a situation.
What are we gonna do?
As far as I can tell, there's nothing we can do for them.
Don't say that!
I don't say it to hurt you! I'm sorry, I shouldn't be yelling.
No, it's fine.
I turned around to the bars, grabbing onto them and looking to the left to see if I could spot them. I couldn't. I saw only darkness. My vision was blocked by the turn in the hallway. All I could hear was a distant clashing of metal and rock. Seems they were making a final stand. Final. That's one word I didn't want to use here. It's simply most accurate.
I can't leave them to die, Iron. I can't. That's my best friend. That's my sister. And the closest thing to a fucked up father figure I've had, and I can't just let them die.
And I can't let you die either!
What?
I turned around and she was lightly cauterizing her wound.
I will do my best to melt through the bars and save them myself. But I cannot promise you anything. If you go out there as you are, you will simply die with them. Do you think that's their wish? Do you think that's mine?
What are you saying? My whole purpose is to get you from point A to point B. Who cares if I...
We all do! This isn't just about me anymore. This is about all of us. We all get there safe. That's the goal. You gave your hand to ensure that, so maybe in exchange, I can give a foot.
No, are you crazy?
Would you relax? This body isn't sticking around. I'm leaving it behind when I turn back. Who cares if I lose a foot?
But what if you just decide to...
Decide what?
No, nothing. Sorry. Are you sure about this? I feel like there's an easier way.
No. I'm ready. You stay here.
Ira nobly picked herself up off the ground, dirt and soot covering her skin. She took a step forward on her good foot and nodded. She took another step, yelped, and fell down again.
God damn it! It's as I feared.
Is it broken?
Well, it certainly feels that way, given I can't stand up straight.
Now what? No, wait, I can carry you down there and you can just shoot from my back like a fire-shooting backpack.
No! I refuse to let you leave this cell as you are, even if I'm with you.
Then what's the plan?
We stay. We stay and hope they survive. And if they don't...
What?
If they don't, then my strength will have hopefully returned enough for me to defend us both. Until you and I can leave.
You're letting them die so you can heal your leg?
Does it look like I'm excited to make this decision? I am trying hard here, Alexander. You cannot fathom how deeply this plan hurts me. But it's the only way that you and I can leave. If only Edith had let me. Never mind. It was her decision.
You didn't dragon brand her?
Of course not. You would have noticed if I had. It's not something that's easily missable on a person, believe me. However, despite the dire circumstances we're in, I believe that she was right. I have no right to enforce such a curse upon someone.
Wait. You can still brand.
I don't have my potions or anything.
But can you still do it? Can you make it fast?
I mean, hold on. Why are you asking? Surely you aren't suggesting that we...
Iron, please. This is the only way I can possibly...
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
What? Oh, come on, don't do this.
Alexander, you have no understanding.
Iron, please.
Of the ramifications.
Iron!
No. 1,000 times no. I cannot do this. Not to you, not to anyone. It was a selfish thing to ask of anybody to bear in the first place.
If you do not do this, Edith and Phineas will die.
Don't you think I know that? That should tell you how bad of an idea it is. Especially without my potions, preparation, and the time to do it correctly.
We're out of fucking options here! Edith is like a sister to me, and Phineas has become so close to family it's insane. My dad is dead. My mom is dead. My hero barely knows I exist. I don't have anyone besides you three. And if I lost any of you...
Alexander.
Please, Iron. I beg of you. As a person, as an ally, as a friend. Do not make me go through that grief again.
I'd come to learn the common languages of humans rather well over the years. And the definition of desperation is defined as a state of despair that causes one to act in rash, impulsive, and irresponsible behaviors. And this boy was the personification of that. The look in his eyes told the story of a boy who had lost so much. And though you might think him numb to the idea of losing another, his heart never wanted. It never gave up hope. It never gave up love. Despite all of the pain he'd endured, he forged ahead with a smile. How was he so okay with this incredibly idiotic and maniacal decision? He must not know, I thought. And I was right. He didn't. But he had lost so much. He didn't want to lose any more. And though it hurt me deeply, though it worried me sick, though it gave me anxiety beyond what I thought was possible for a dragon, I would not be the reason that he got his heart broken again. We will need a circle of blood around us.
Iron, thank you so much. So how do we...
Give me your arm. He did as I asked, showing his left arm. I reached out with my talons and sliced him. He had scars from the fight with Tara. Now I just added another. Guilt was not a luxury I could afford. I sliced my arm open as well, and gathered my blood and began making a circle. Draw over my circle with your blood until it mixes. There's no sign that it's mixed, so just make sure you don't overdo it. If you lose a lot of blood and pass out, you aren't going to be of use to anybody.
Right.
Sit across from me, legs crossed. Hands cupped over your lap as though you're meditating.
All right, done. We ready?
You have to know the consequences before we begin, Alexander.
Tell me about them later.
Alexander, I mean it. I'm speaking to you as a man, not a servant. This is going to be the most painful thing that you have ever experienced. It will be as though your mind is on fire.
You're wasting time! Just do it!
The next 10 seconds will be the most excruciating
Iron, do it!
pain that you have ever experienced. It will put you in a state of intense fragility, and there's a chance that you'll never—
Now!
Oh, you stupid fool! I sliced my palms with my nails on both hands and slammed my hand into my left eye and his at the same time. And then all of it at once. It destroyed us.
Despair, loneliness, pressure, anxiety, a crown too big for my own head.
Heat, fear, anger, desperation. Fire not from my own hand.
I watched as 1,000 dragons come and go in the blink of an eye. An entire race of beings being born and dying in an instant.
A father, a man, a wretched drunk. My only hope, burned alive. Dread engulfed me.
A hollow bough, a lifeless hail. No one cares. No one loves. I am a trophy and nothing more.
Starvation. Freezing winds. No home. No bed. Alone on the lightless streets. Not even a crumb to satiate my hunger.
A best friend. Dead. My indecisiveness. I didn't act. I watched him die. The only one to believe in me.
My only friend. Gone. Left the city. I was alone. Only one girl remained to help me.
No one approached me. No one spoke to me. The king's demand outgrew my qualifications. I feel as though I may break at any moment.
She was always better. Jealousy, longing. I alone stood in this shadow. I alone can free myself. But I cannot find the will to do so.
Eulorium.
Vesperia.
No freedom.
No love.
Loneliness.
Hopelessness.
Or memories.
His memories.
I can feel her.
He's right there.
And now,
We become one. Darkness. Silence. Emptiness. The lack of my senses drowned me in a sea of my thoughts and memories. 10 seconds. And 10 long seconds. I experienced every pain, sorrow, struggle, and the loss that Alexander went through in agonizing detail. Arriving in overload. And then, all at once, I returned. I reawakened to the sounds of screaming. And it was only by the pain in my own throat that I realized that they were mine. I stopped, and my hand dropped from our faces, and my body collapsed in the dirt. I looked at them. They seemed to be mine, but I couldn't feel them. My talons were there, my scars were there, but this body that I'd come to grow accustomed to, it didn't feel like mine. Was I even awake? Was I even alive? This weakness, this exhaustion. I felt no power at all. No will. I covered my left eye, and it was bleeding. I figured as much. I looked up at Alexander with my right eye. His head was down, his arms at his side. He looked like a corpse that had been balanced upright. Alexander, are you okay? It took several moments, but he eventually shook his head, covering his left eye. Blood leaked from it. He looked at his hand, and thankfully the blood could barely stain his red glove. My breath began to return to me, but just barely. That makes two of us. Listen to me. It took all my willpower, but I pushed myself upright, sitting on the floor. You're probably more overwhelmed than you have ever been. You must be tired, in pain and extremely stressed. But you simply do not have the luxury to show it. You wanted this gift, this curse. It is now your responsibility to use it. Go on and save your friends. And after that, we can process this. He did not reply. He kept his head down, covering his eye again. He suddenly rose to his feet and walked to the cell door and grabbed it with his hand and his hook. He grunted softly, and it yanked free with intense force. The hinges bent and tore, and he laid the door down next to the cell. I watched as this new man walked out of the cell and grabbed his sword. He raised it, and the ease of which he did it, with only his right hand, briefly startled him. He swung it around deftly, as though it was nothing more than a butter knife. And he looked over at me, his left eye still shut.
Wait here.
His voice was that of a broken man. I knew it was the only way for all five of us to walk out of here alive. 6 of us, if you counted that bloody goat. I nodded weakly and he sprinted off down. I sat there, alone, and I collapsed to the ground. As soon as I realized that I was safe, and that I was alone, I began to weep. And I did so for a very, very long time.
Bah! What a bunch of insignificant creatures. If you fought one-on-one with a kobold, you'd likely win. Yes, you, the one listening. They're tiny, pale, brown creatures with horrendous eyesight and very cowardly to boot. Kobolds are easy. Hell, I'd consider them training for initiates, actually. However, that's provided there is only one kobold. A single one is harmless. But in groups of any more than that, it's like a hive mind. They seem to get stronger and smarter the more of them that there are. As if they're all parts of a larger whole. And though the sergeant and I have killed a few of them, it was obvious the numbers game was not in our favor.
If we make it out of this, remind me to sharpen my damn spear on a weekly basis. It's not piercing shit right now.
Hell, if we get out of this, remind me to take up teleportation magic. That would have spared us this entire journey.
And miss all of the family time we've shared?
You can call it that, but right now the only bonding you and I are having is being death buddies.
Dibs on dying last.
Oh, that's too bad, because I was planning on burying you, so no can do.
Looks like neither of us can die first then. Fine by me.
Ignorak hid behind us, watching over Harold, who, as you might guess, did absolutely nothing. Likely didn't even know he was in danger. To be a stupid goat. The sergeant swung her spear in a wide arc, clearing a path ahead of her. Before she could run, the reinforcements took the spot of the fallen kobolds. She grimaced. I did what I could with earth magic, but I still needed more energy. I made small pillars of earth and knocked them away, but they kept coming.
You know, I'll be honest. When I said all that stuff about staying behind to hell, I was really convinced there wouldn't be this many. We've killed at least 20 of these things, and it feels like there's more than 20 remaining.
If you want to turn and run, I'm not stopping you.
Only thinking out loud, not going anywhere.
Good. Then keep using the...
I briefly turned around to see the sergeant go down. I jumped back to her side, picking her up.
Damn thing got me right in the thigh.
Can you stand?
Not without wobbling, but I'll have to manage.
I guess I'll use the spear.
You even know how to use that thing?
Sure, it's just the really long sword, right? How hard could it be?
Give it back. I'd like to die with my weapon in my hand, if it's all the same to you.
Sergeant, we are not...
Quit bullshitting and give me my weapon.
I did as she asked. The girl was a fool, but she had honor. Honor, however, is overrated and gets you killed. Which brings us to the end of our rope. I didn't say it, but the earth magic I was using was bringing me to my knees. I simply didn't have enough energy to keep casting. I had one good cast left in me. Even then, it would only delay the inevitable. Kobolds were likely a trivial foe in some stories, but in reality, they were a tidal wave. And that tidal wave slowly approached us, ready to drown us in its endless ocean. Until a lone echo, the subtle, eerie scraping of steel, came to part the sea. Everyone heard it. Me, Edith, Ignorant, Harold, and every kobold stopped to look. A figure in the darkness, slowly approaching the room. And to this day, I remember this very vividly. I felt him long before I saw him. That aura, it was pure killing intent. It was, to put it simply, wrath. It did not take long before my eyes shared the same sentiment. Almost a silhouette too dark to make out the long, menacing blade scraping along the ground. There was only one color hidden amongst the shadows. Red. A single, piercing scarlet light emanating from their eye. Slowly, almost in an inhuman motion, the figure came into view. It was Xander. He was slightly hunched over, blood stained the left side of his face like war paint, and the look in his eyes was so distant, utterly primal, looked like he had been possessed. He held Alistair in his hand, his head tilted. There was no conscience in those eyes. It was the shell of a boy who exuded a violent aura that made every being in the room craven. Then I watched him inhale, picking the edge of the blade off the ground with great ease. And as the kobolds began to completely redirect their attention to him, what happened next will stick with me for the rest of my days. This is what happened. He rushed in, faster than I'd ever seen him move, and swung the blade with such trivial ease that it gave me whiplash. I watched as the blade cleaved through several of them with absolutely no resistance, and blood soaked his head and arms. His hair dripped with the blood of his opponents.
What the fuck? What is wrong with him?
Just stay back. Live long enough to find out, and I don't think he can tell friend from foe right now. He whipped his sword around with such ferocity and rage that there was no accuracy or cold calculation. This was pure rampage. His anger and savagery leaked out of him so brutally that I could taste it. He was a walking, autonomous killing machine. He blocked a strike from Kobold, sunk his hook into their gut and ripped violently, spilling their innards all over the floor. Edith looked away, but I could do no such thing. The Kobold's numbers rained with frightening speed, almost like walking through a rainstorm of blades. The way he swung his weapon wasn't with momentum, it was raw power. He could have split a mountain with that kind of strength. What happened to him? What caused this sudden burst of vigor? His clothes were ruined. He was absolutely drenched in red. When he turned towards the kobold that stood in front of us, his ghastly visage showed a grin full of bloodlust. Never seen a sight so terrifying in all my life. And it was from one of the biggest hearts I'd ever met. They met their end before they even attacked. He was no longer defending himself. He was painting the walls red. They brought in archers to try and bring him down. And he showed that he wasn't just strong. He wasn't just fast. He was agile as a cat. He jumped against the wall and pushed off of it, leaping through the air and landing behind them, and slaying them all with one swift horizontal arm. He didn't even take the time to admire his kills. He jumped back down and they all surrounded him. He lowered into a calmer stance, or at least as calm as he could be. They slowly began their hesitant march. He raised Alistair and held it behind him. Then I saw it. The rune on the blade lit up. He noticed it as well, looking back for a moment. Then he threw it from a sidearm, and it spun wildly like a cyclone. It left a trail of ruin in its wake as it ended everything it touched. It went a full circle around him until nothing was left standing. The room was soaked in the remains of an entire clan of kobolds. The blade whirled in his hand, and he caught it by the hilt and dropped the edge to the ground, holding it lazily. This boy was not Xander. His body was Xander's. His face was Xander's. Everything was Xander's. But this monster was not the boy I'd come to trust. What had he become? Edith looked once again, her eyes in horror at the sight we just witnessed. Ignorak peeped to see Xander and began approaching him. I immediately grabbed his tail. No, not right now. Stay back, Ignorak. He is not well.
This isn't real. He's not real. Is this just some nightmare?
I don't know, but just stay back. I slowly rose to my feet, with a hand out hesitantly. I'd never been more afraid than I was right there. Xander, is that you? No response. Xander, it's me, Phineas. know, the evil wizard. I'm not that evil right now, so no need to get into any fights. He was statue-like. He didn't move. Xander. Come on. Look at me, son. His body finally began to move, and I froze. He turned slowly to look at me, and that's when I saw it. I thought that piercing red light was a mirage. Eyes playing tricks, but it wasn't. His right eye was completely normal, albeit a bit covered in blood, but it was his natural blue color. But his left eye, it wasn't. It was red, a deep sanguine color, with a sharp, snake-like pupil. This was not his eye. Edith saw this and rose to her feet, slowly approaching him.
Oh my god. Xander. She didn't.
He stared at us blankly for a while, didn't say a word. Ignorax slipped by me and approached him. I cursed and prayed nothing would happen. He pawed Xander's leg lovingly. Xander looked down, and his sword fell to the floor. It was covered in, well, you know. He knelt down, patting Ignorax on the head with his gloved hand. After removing his hand, he noticed blood on Ignorax's head. He looked at his hand, his hook in his arms, saw the result of what he'd done. Xander?
Talk to us. Please.
Why am I so...
Before we could reply, Xander collapsed onto the ground. His body limp and his eyes closed. He laid motionless. Ignorax jumped and instantly crawled towards his face.
Xander!
Damn it! We rushed over to his side. I inspected his battle-ridden face deftly. Edith kneeled down next to him, her hand on his arm trying to comfort his motionless body. Does he have a pulse?
Thankfully, yes. Albeit very faint. Damn it. This can't be him. What happens now?
Now he must sleep.
We looked up to see Irene limping towards us, one of her arms clutching her bad leg. Her head was down, and she was obviously in intense pain. Edith stood up and walked over to her.
Your leg.
Your leg. You're bleeding.
Irene, what happened? Xander got away from you somehow, and then he just went absolutely berserk.
Yes. That's to be expected.
What's to be expected? From what?
Edith, you told me a bit ago that to err is human. Well,
Irene looked at us. The left side of her face, just like Xander, was coated in blood, but not her eye. Her left eye it was blue. And the pupil was standard circular shape, not snake-like at all. In fact, it looked just like Xander's eye. And Xander's left eye looked like Irene's.
I have, in fact, erred.
Your eye. That means...
Yes. I'm sorry.
You.
Edith gripped Irene's collar violently and pulled her up. She looked viciously and angrily into Irene's eyes. Irene's expression didn't change. It was frozen like a statue's.
You treacherous little... How could you do this? How could you dare curse him with that? Do you have any idea what you've done to him?
Will you stop yelling? What's that going to do? What happened?
She dragon branded him!
Princess, is that true?
Yell at me all you like, but the fact is he's lying unconscious in a pool of kobold blood. Please carry him back to Jazzblack. He will need the rest.
This isn't over. Do you understand me?
Nothing you could ever do to me could be worse than what I have experienced.
What do you mean?
Fire is quite terrifying.
She turned to Edith, looking deep into her soul, looking almost through her.
Don't you think?
Iron, almost motionless, as if mentally absent, walked out ahead of us, limping outside weakly. The boulder that the kobolds used to block the entrance was in rubble. I hadn't even noticed that Alistair destroyed it while storming around the room. She grabbed Harold by the collar and led him outside. Edith just stared at her as she left, and when she looked at me, she looked lost, as if Iron's words put a spell on her. I looked down at Xander. I grabbed the boy, picking him up. I slung him over my shoulder. Suddenly, I wished I had taken the princess up on her weight training. Grab his sword. Make sure Ignorak follows us.
Right. Do you need any help?
Yes, but I'll have to manage.
My best friend. Is he gone?
I don't know, Edith. I wish I knew everything.
Phineas, I don't want to lose another brother.
Nor I and others. Come on. He needs to rest. The sooner we can get him into a bed, the better. Wokekt can help us. In reality, I did not know if she could. I said it to make her feel better. To make me feel better. I did not know if I would ever hear Xander laugh again, see him smile again. I did not know if I could save him. And even if I could, I did not know if he would be the same young man I met in that tower all those months ago. But it didn't matter. He gave me purpose. He gave me a reason to live. And I would do anything to repay that debt. I would do everything in my power to pull him from this shadow. I only hope that I had enough light to follow him into the dark.